that's it from me for the moment. You can reach me on Twitter though. I'm at Samantha TV News. Stay tuned. We've got World Business Report with you with Victoria. See you shortly.
Now on BBC World News, the latest business news from across the globe. World Business Report.
London not calling, fears for the city's global status as another company moves its shares to Wall Street. And a bumper day for airlines, with Qantas announcing it's hiring thousands of staff and Lufthansa returning to profit. Hello and a very warm welcome to World Business Report. I'm Victoria Valentine. We're going to start here in London, where the outlook for the city as a financial centre is, according to some, looking a little murky. In the last few hours, one of the UK's most successful tech companies, the chip designer Arm, has confirmed it will be listing its shares in New York instead of London, despite intensive lobbying by the UK government. It's just the latest blow for the city after the world's biggest construction materials company, CRH, told investors on Thursday that it's moving its stock market listing away from London too, heading for New York. They're far from alone. The plumbing giant Ferguson left the FTSE 100 last year and moved to Wall Street, and the gambling group Flutter also says it's considering doing the same. The size of the London stock market has been shrinking in recent years. At its peak in 2007, the value of shares listed in London was $4.3 trillion. That number has fallen, as you can see, to $3 trillion as of this year. And that means that London is no longer Europe's largest stock market. It lost that title to Paris last year. Well, let's talk now to Fiona Cincotta from City Index here in London. Fiona, this has been quite a hot topic. Lots of people talking about this. Why is it that companies are fleeing the London market?
Okay, so there are quite a few reasons companies are looking to go elsewhere. But I think we've probably seen that the prestige that London had and the stability that London had prior to Brexit has sort of deteriorated a little bit, which has helped sort of push some companies towards other listings. I mean, we must bear in mind that the London rules and regulations for listing are very complex and burdensome. And I think at some point that was sort of considered very prestigious. But now what we're seeing is, perhaps the US, which has a history of innovation, which is very attractive for stocks, particularly tech stocks, are being drawn over to that side. You've also got other reasons. For example, companies might find that they're much more focused towards the US. They might have a larger client base there. They might have operational reasons to be there, or for prospects of for acquisitions as well. But I think the really big pull is the size of the capital market in the US compared to London. It's huge, and that means that things like liquidity and the ability to move in and out of trades, higher valuations are much more attractive. And at the same time, over here in the UK, whilst the London stock market by capitalization has been reduced, it's been smaller, it's been getting smaller. In the US, we've seen quite the opposite. It's been getting bigger, making it even more attractive.
But the thing is all of this has got implications, doesn't it? Because where you're listed is where you're going to be taxed. And those taxes, that tax revenue, ends up in the public purse and gets spent on things like healthcare, for example, in this country. So it's a pretty big blow, is it not, to the UK government?
It's a massive, because that revenue stream is a really important revenue stream for the government. And, I think they'll be doing now what they can in order to fix that. We've had a rocky few years, as I said, with Brexit. Now we've got that post Brexit trade deal with the Northern Ireland side of things sorted out. Hopefully that will mean that the UK can move forward with talks with the EU in order to make some progress there as well, because the financial services really was very much left out of the Brexit deal. But I think on a global scale as well, I think it's an area that the government's really looking or needs to look to focus on to really build out the idea of stability and confidence in the UK again.
Fiona, thanks very much. Fiona Cincotta in London. Thanks. Now let's turn our attention to airlines, because Qantas has announced it will hire 8,500 new staff over the next decade. The Australian carrier has bounced back from the pandemic blues and only last week announced $1.5 billion profit. $1.5 billion profits for the year. Another airline benefiting from the opening up of international borders, Lufthansa as well, who in the last couple of hours has announced a net profit of $840 million for 2022. That's the first profit it has made in years, and certainly first post-pandemic profit. We're joined now by John Grant, who's the director of global travel data provider OAG. Thanks so much for joining me, John. It's good to see you. Looking at some of this data, Qantas actually got rid of close to 10,000 people as a result of the pandemic. So this 8.5 that it's adding, I mean, how good is that? Because of course we also still have this cost of living crisis. So how optimistic are they about passenger numbers?
Well, I think they're pretty optimistic. They did get rid of a lot of employees very quickly, and this is part of the rebuild. But they've had this plan for what they describe as Project Sunrise, to operate non-stop from Sydney to London Heathrow from 2025, and they've actually placed an order for A350s purely to operate non-stop Sydney London and Sydney New York. And it's indicative of where they are. They're trying to expand their reach. They're putting new product into their markets. They've actually just acquired a new first-class lounge in London Heathrow that's going to be refitted just purely for Project Sunrise. So they're doing very, very well. And of course, they have the advantage of being the dominant carrier in Australia. Lufthansa's profits are okay. Their capacity is still way down on where we were in 2019, probably about 30% below the number of seats that they were operating 4 years ago. They are struggling to rebuild for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, as you say, and so a lot of that profit lift was actually from yield, wasn't it, as opposed to an increase in passenger numbers. But what I've noticed from both of these is this issue of staff shortages and how that's affecting the schedules. Lufthansa saying that they were changing their summer schedules as a result. Yeah,
and this is an issue that's not going to be here just this summer. I was doing some research this week. There's a potential pilot shortage of about 55,000 pilots through to the end of the decade, because we cannot recruit pilots, we cannot put them through the training. And it's not just pilots, it's skilled engineers, it's avionics people, it's just even, with respect, people such as baggage handlers. The industry is struggling to bring people back. Many people left, found jobs and careers outside of the industry, and decided not to return. So it's a bit of a worry, and it's driving the industry to think about how it can put more AI type facilities in, how it can automate its business.
Okay, thanks very much, John. John Grant there.
You're welcome.
Don't forget, you can always get in touch with me on Twitter. I'm at VValentineNews.